So we're going to get started with Brian Seymour sharing out. He's the Director of Instructional Technology from Pickerington, local school district. Brian, I'm going to pass you the presenter screen. Thanks for being here.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Great. So Leilani and Doug, thank you so much for having me a part of this. Thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing through the Learning Council. I know it's been appreciated here in Pickerington for the last 5 or 6 years, I think, now that we've been a part of this and done some great work and really some forward thinking. So thank you again for everything. So today, what I'd like to talk about a little bit is obviously the fun chaos of school this year, and what does that look like, and our model that we have developed, which we are calling the Flexible Learning Plan 2.0. And basically, we had Flexible Learning Plan 1.0 last year in the spring, when on March 20th, we had to about 48 hours to completely change and have everybody at home and move through with that. So we felt that we could do this better. And whenever a new app comes out, it's always, you know, the next version up. So we're calling this version 2.0. So Pickerington Schools, we are inside of Central Ohio, just the southeast corner, right in Buckeye country here. We have about 10,800 students, 1,200 staff members, and 15 different buildings. I am luckily the Director of Instructional Technology. This is my 20th year here in Pickerington. Pickerington's been the only home that I have known, which is interesting because I actually went to school in Pickerington K through 12. So I am Pickerington born and bred, and worked here as a teacher, instructional coach, curriculum coordinator, and now for the last 7 years as the Director of Instructional Technology. So once again, talking about where it is that we went, what we went through, kind of the same struggles that everybody is currently going through now. But what are some of those things that we were able to do that hopefully you can take back to your district? I know there are some school districts in Columbus area here that have been virtual up until now and are now going back into hybrid. So we've been having lots of conversations with a lot of those schools about what were some things that we learned over the last 6-7 weeks here that we've been in school in the hybrid model. So if we back up and we talk about the spring, March 20th was that date that we, the governor closed down schools, and we had to go fully virtual for the remainder of the school year. And with that was a lot of, on my end at least, a lot of devices, and Wi-Fi. So luckily, we have been one-to-one in our school district for the past 5 years now. So every one of our kids from kindergarten through 12th grade get devices. The only thing that we had that was unique was at our elementary schools, those devices had stayed in the buildings. So we had to figure out, how do we get those devices out? How do we do that? And then what do we do about Wi-Fi? Because even though we did a recent survey with our students and families, and showed that about 94–95% of our families had Wi-Fi, it was nowhere near enough Wi-Fi. So we had to figure out what to do, and luckily we had a grant through T-Mobile that we're able to get hotspots. We also had moved a lot of our stuff into digital programs. We no longer buy textbooks. We haven't bought textbooks in 4 or 5 years now, outside of CCP and AP courses, and everything's been moved over to digital. So luckily we already had a lot of those processes, procedures, how to log in, the single sign-on, the organization, that was already rolling through the school year. So we just continued using that same type of a format as we went digital. And the biggest thing is, for as quickly as we did it, we felt that we did okay, but we knew that we could do better. So we took a lot of the time in May and into June and in July to really figure out, how can we make this even better than what it was in the spring. And with that, we developed this, which is our Flexible Learning 2.0 plan. And our ultimate goal with this is to bring students back to school. And we actually just had a vote by our board on Monday that starting on November 16th, we are actually going back to school 4 days a week with all of our kids that were in the hybrid model. We also do have a virtual learning academy, and that will stay in existence. But now we're going to be able to go through and say we've done virtual learning last spring. We started the school year out with hybrid, and now November 16th, we're going to bring all of our students back that are in the hybrid model, at least, together 4 days a week, with Wednesday still being kind of a prep day. So the biggest thing with this plan, and this plan is available online. The link is up there at the top of the screen. Feel free to download it. It's 57 pages long. And the biggest thing that we wanted to do with this was we wanted to create a master plan for all situations. And that was our first question. Can that even be done? Because we don't know all the situations. We still don't know all the situations. But we tried to do as much as we possibly could to allow us to have everything or somewhat figured out to start out with this plan. So the plan does have, what do we do if all of our students are back? What do we do if hybrid? What do we do virtual learning? Because we know even if our kids come back, which they're coming back on November 16th, it's still not the same school as it was, and it shouldn't be the same school as it was either. We know hybrid. What do we have to do with those kids in virtual days? What do we do with kids that are in face-to-face days? How do teachers manage both a hybrid class and a virtual class at the exact same time? So what are some different things that we need to do with that? We also knew that we had a large population of our families that didn't want to come back into school at all. And out of our almost 11,000 kids, we have 2,000 kids that are in our virtual learning academies, kindergarten through 12th grade. Also, a big question was, what's instruction going to look like? Parents, families, teachers, everybody knows what instruction looks like on a regular pre-COVID type of a thing, but what is it going to look like now that my kids only come to school twice a week, or my kids are logging into Google Meet every single day? What is that going to look like? So we really wanted to spell out what that looked like to try to kind of calm some of the fears, and as well as give some guidance to what our teachers and the work that they were going to continue doing. We also had to talk a lot about safety precautions. We have said more times about health department and this and that and masks and social distancing and did we order enough masks and hand sanitizer and all those types of things. So we've really worked with a lot of our staff on those types of things. We also wanted to create clear expectations, and I think clear is one of the biggest words that we've used this year, is that we want to be as clear and concise with our directions, expectations, because there is a lot of confusion and there's a lot of mixed messages that are out there. So the more clear we can be with those, and we wanted those expectations for every group of stakeholders that we could possibly do. So we did for students, we did for parents, and then we broke staff down as well too. What do we need our teachers to do? What do we need our principals to do? What do we need our tech department to do? What do we need our parapros, our secretaries, our custodians, and so on and so forth? And we spelled all those out. So once again, there was clear expectations on what the job expectations were for our staff as well too. And then the next piece I'm very excited about, and I've actually had some conversations with Leilani about this as well, is we decided that we were going to move our entire staff of about 800 teachers into a shared creation, shared delivery model of instruction. So with that many staff, we had the advantage of teachers being able to work together and sharing some of the load of all this creation. We're going to have to create videos. We're going to have to create different lessons than what we've created in the past. We don't have a lot of prep time. We don't have a lot of outside work. We know teachers already have a lot on their plate. So what can we do to be able to do this better? So we now have created teacher-based teams, TBTs, across our entire district. So at the elementary level, we have 7 elementary buildings. All of the first grade teachers across 7 buildings are all working together. And some of them are really good at creating videos. Some of them are really good at giving feedback. Some of them are really good at giving or creating assessments, and so on. So we're using the strength of our teachers to be able to create those things and then share those things amongst the entire first grade or whatever grade level or subject area that we're in. So just because I'm in first grade and I'm watching a video, I might not see my teacher on the screen for all the videos. It's going to be a shared type of a thing. And that has really worked out well. I mean, it is probably the single best thing that we've done from this. And we are going to continue this work even after we go back to quote unquote, whatever normal school is going to look like after this. So we started off the 2020-2021 school year in a hybrid model, about 9,000 students in that model, and then 1,800 students in our virtual learning academy. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit more about what our hybrid model and our plan looks like. So we created this, which is fairly, I think I've seen this on quite a few different schools models, but this was our kind of different levels that we could do, and we kind of color coded these kind of like a stoplight. So we've got COVID status level green, which is everybody back. So that would be 5 days a week. All kids are back. There's no virtual learning academy, nothing like that. So we don't think that we're going to be able to get to that. The 4 days a week that we're going to start on November 16th, we're actually calling light green because we're not fully there yet, but we're stepping into that. Status level yellow was the hybrid model, and we chose to do 2 days in school, 3 days virtually. So kids came Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday. It allowed our teachers to have half of that Wednesday for a work day, and then half of a day for very targeted intervention. Also gave us kind of a break in between the two different cohorts for some cleaning and stuff like that on Wednesdays. Status level orange, we have not had to use yet, luckily, but that is if we have to close down a specific building. And this would be necessitated by the health department. So if we had a lot of cases or a lot of quarantining or staff was out, we could potentially close down one building and keep the rest of the district up and running. And then status level red, we haven't got there this year either, but we were obviously there in the spring, and that would be 100% virtual learning. One of the big pieces with our plan is that we wanted to be able to flow nicely between any of these colors. So if we start with, yellow and now we're at green, we wanted whatever the instructional model that we have created for this year to be able to be moved fairly easily. So a lot of the work that we're doing is digital. Everything's still in the LMS, no matter what model we're at, because as we saw in the spring, we may have to change within 48 hours or even quicker now if we have to close a building down or if we have to go to status level red. So we wanted all of that to be as consistent as possible. Here were our guiding principles that we talked about and that we created when we created this flexible learning 2.0 plan. And the first piece is that we wanted to give in-person instruction for all of our students as much as we possibly can. We know that our teachers were trained in-person instruction. They weren't trained necessarily to do virtual instruction. So we're all kind of learning that. So the best case for us to give the best instruction that we can is in person. So how can we do that, but then also provide a fully online option and be able to pivot between all of these different models as we go through. We also know that we wanted to continue to have high quality educational materials for all of our students. We know that what we've had has worked in the past, and we've tested those for years. So how can we be able to give the same curriculum, the same resources, the same tools to our kids, no matter what model they're in, as we go through this process? And we've done a great job with that. Our teachers are creating curriculum. We did not go out and buy a special program. We wanted our teachers, because we know that our teachers have one of the biggest impacts on education. So we wanted them to really have the ability to do this, and working with their teacher-based teams even add so much more to this, to the educational materials. We also pushed the whole child and maintaining personal connections. So a lot of what we talk about when we talk about online stuff is how can we still be able to do some of those fun, engaging type things. We did go out and buy a couple fun, engaging programs like Pear Deck or GimKit or Padlet, just so there's a little bit more digital interaction with kids. We didn't buy it for the whole district. We bought a few licenses here and there, you know, probably 100 or 200 licenses, and then teachers, as they wanted to use it, they kind of got a license with that. So the other big thing that we found has worked really well is simplicity. Simplicity and consistency are best with this. So as consistent as we possibly can and as simple as we can. So we didn't do any confusing things like these kids will go to school this week and then these kids will go to this school this week, or A and B days, because parents, when we talked with parents, they said that's just way too confusing. Keep me on the same day, keep me grouped up, so then that way we can actually see and know where we're at. Don't mess with the schedule. So for example, when we went from yellow to green or light green, we're still keeping the Wednesday as the professional learning day, professional work day for our staff. There were talks about, should we make it Monday? Should we make it Friday? Because then, you know, parents would love to have a 3-day weekend or what have you. But we said, let's keep it consistent. Let's keep it simple. It's always been Wednesday. We're going to keep it Wednesday. So for childcare or what have you, that's the best with that. And then one of the things, like I said earlier, teachers need time to work collaboratively. This is a completely different model than what any of them have mostly ever taught in. They need time to work. This is not going to work if they do not have the time to work through there. So here's what our hybrid model looks like that we're currently doing right now. So cohort A, as I said, was Monday and Tuesday. Cohort B was in school Thursday and Friday. And then the other 3 days were virtual. Now, on the Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays when the kids are virtual, the grand majority of their assignments are done asynchronous without the connection of the teacher. And that's just because teachers are teaching, you know, in school. We did not do the, I'm going to stream my classroom out to the world, because we just felt that that was not a good instructional model. We didn't have the technology, we didn't have the nicer cameras, we didn't have the better speakers, the better microphones. We didn't want to invest the money in that for basically for a year. So we felt that we were going to really have a conversation about this, and this is really our driving question for curriculum, is what are those unique teaching and learning experiences that have to be done while the student is in the classroom and the teacher, with the teacher, and what experiences can be done from home. So that was really where we started this question with our teachers about what curriculum and how can we redesign the curriculum to fit the hybrid model, knowing that kids are going to be at least 2, maybe 3 days kind of on their own through the LMS, through the digital tools that we have. So moving on, and I won't go over all of this, but I wanted to give you the material that are here. This is basically our overview of the hybrid model. So I basically said, you know, what the structure kind of looks like. The big question was, what do Wednesdays look like? You know, all of our kids are virtual on Wednesdays. Our teachers, we still require them to be in the building. But what does that look like? So AM hours for teachers, and it depends, you know, times for different grade levels because we kept them on their same schedules. AM hours would be teacher-based teams, and that's what took up the majority of the time. We also had ongoing virtual professional learning opportunities, and a shout out to my instructional educational technology team, because they have done so much professional development on how to use this digital tool or how to use this digital tool. And I will tell you, over the last 6 months, we have got probably more movement on teachers learning how to use digital tools than what we have ever had in the previous 7 years that I've been in this role. So it's incredible what teachers are able to do now, and the great things that they're doing here in Pickerington. We also gave teachers time for planning. A lot of that was done through the teacher-based teams. A lot of that was like creating videos, creating lessons, putting lessons into the LMSs that we were using. And then also, how do we appropriately give students feedback on those virtual tasks? So some of our teachers are just doing it, typing in the answers or typing in the feedback. Some have started using different tools. One that we found works really good is a program called Moat inside of Google Docs, where teachers can actually talk to the kids and it records their voice on feedback. So it's really cool what we're seeing with that. And then the PM hours on Wednesdays would be a lot of virtual instruction, and it would be targeted virtual instruction. So kids that maybe aren't doing their virtual work, or kids that are struggling in the in-school type work, or kids that are maybe on tier 3 RTI, special education students, those types of things, EL students, speech, all of those types of things have been done in the PM hours with that. One of the things that we got a huge pushback on is what's going to happen with athletics, band, and clubs. And we allowed those students to come back in after school. They weren't allowed back in the building, but they were allowed outside for practices and those types of things, outside of like maybe volleyball and things like that. But that was a huge dilemma that we had to deal with, and that's been interesting. The other thing that we did was we worked with our special ed teachers and our special ed director, and some of our students that had intensive and complex special education needs, they actually have been attending school 4 days a week. So they're Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and there was actually a team meeting that was required for that. The other thing is we do have a face mask policy our governor has enacted, luckily. We had put this in place, and then 3 days later, the governor came out and said face masks are required for everybody at school. So that really helped out when he said that. But yes, all of our kids from kindergarten all the way up through high school, and all of our staff are working with are wearing face masks. And honestly, that has not been a problem. That was one of our biggest things was, is it going to be a dilemma getting kids to wear masks? And to be honest with you, the answer has been no. Every time I'm out in buildings, there has never been a problem with that. Kids, I think, want to be in school. They don't want to be stuck at home all the time with their parents. So they're doing us these things to be able to be back in school. So talking a little bit more about what we've had the educators do, and really a lot of that has come down to we're looking at having them create a lot of things inside of Google Classroom and Seesaw, and looking at what are those unique instructional tools that we need in place. Clear expectations. One of the best things that we did, and if you've never looked at her work, Catlin Tucker is a phenomenal educator that does a lot of keynotes and does a lot of work on blended learning. We actually partnered with her this summer, and we trained almost all of our teachers and principals in what does it look like to teach online, even if it's just the hybrid portion of it, the 3 days. What does it look like? And those things that she talked about, a lot of the clear expectations, creating syllabus, working together, a lot of those things have been the backbone of what have made our work and our teachers' work very successful this year. So take a look at Catlin Tucker's work. If you're looking for somebody, she has been wonderful to do this. One of the things that we struggled with a lot was how do we really communicate with parents? We know that we can send emails out. We have all of those, great systems that we can do mass emails and teachers can use it. But how many people really truly use email, or I should say read emails? So we knew we needed to do something else. So our phone system here in school actually has an app that we can put on everybody's phones, and it actually looks like you're calling from the school number. So our teachers will all download that. They all have that. So they were able to make phone calls home to parents. The other thing that we found was texting works really, really, really well, but obviously we don't want to use our personal accounts for that because we don't want kids to know phone numbers and those types of things. So we've started using a program called Talking Points. And Talking Points started actually out with our EL coordinator, our English language learner coordinator, because it translates things for you. So it actually will, teacher can type in English and it sends the message out to the families in whatever their home or native language is. And then they can write back in their home or native language, and then it comes back to the teacher in English as well too. So we have found that texting has done so much more work for us than what emails or even phone calls will do. Because with all the spam phone calls that everybody gets, people weren't answering phone calls either. And then, like I said, the biggest thing is we needed time to work with our colleagues. And when I say colleagues, I'm not just saying teachers. We've included instructional coaches. We've included counselors. We've got a bunch of social workers and social worker interns, our psychologists, our librarians. All of those folks are working together, and they either are in a group or in their multiple groups, or they flow inside and out of groups. And the work that we've done in the collaboration has just raised the rigor, has raised the level of work that our teachers are doing, the level of digital tools that they're using, and how they're actually using them is just so much greater and so much better than what we've done. And a lot of our teachers have said, this is wonderful. I love that we actually have time to be able to collaborate. And this is something that we're talking about. How can we keep a hold of this even when we continue to go back? So one of the things we wanted to talk about was, what does learning look like? And this is one of our kindergarten classrooms here, which I think they're cute standing by their desks. And it kills me also because one of my big things that I'm involved in is learning spaces, and a lot of our classrooms have changed learning spaces, and we've had to get rid of a lot of those things this year, unfortunately. So it kills me when I go in and see desks back in rows and kids, distance from each other, but I guess it's something that we need to do at this point in time. But let's talk a little bit about face-to-face and what does the learning and what does the instruction look like? And once again, it goes back to that idea of our first task that we asked our teachers to do was go through first semester, and that's a lot, but go through first semester and figure out what are those unique learning activities that have to be done when students are in the school building or when they're directly with the teachers. So for example, I'm a former high school science teacher. I would say labs need to be done when kids are there. Intro to technology tools, how do you first use those so teachers can see those? What about diagnostic and summative assessments? How can we make sure that those continue to be valid and reliable? What do we need to do with teacher-led instruction? And then where does the intervention and enrichment go? And then what do we do, or what can we do on those virtual days, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And one of the things that we talked a lot about is that we need to value the time that we have in front of our students and make sure we're using that time to the best of our abilities. So in the past, some of our teachers have decided, I'm going to show a video, or I'm going to show a movie, or I'm going to have kids do quote unquote busy work. We have had to really strongly eliminate a lot of that stuff during when our kids are in school, which obviously, if you look at the instructional rigor of some of those things, you're not talking about something that is really valuable and going to move the needle. So it's really been helpful for us to be able to get rid of some of that quote unquote fluff, I guess we could say, and really get down to what does good instruction look like, and being able to collaborate with all of our teachers, that has helped out a ton. We're not streaming, I said that before. We want different activities for when they're in face-to-face and when they're virtual. So we really didn't want to have to overlap those as we went through. We continue to use the same digital programs. Now we've got about 65 different programs that we use across the district. They're different by grade level and content areas and those types of things. But we didn't buy a special program. I know some school districts that have gone out this year and just completely bought a brand new program. And now your teachers are learning something completely new. Your kids are learning something completely new. There's all kinds of problems with those that I'm hearing. So we wanted to continue with the same level of resources that we have. And then obviously we were very lucky that we already had the district-wide one-to-one. So all of our kids now are taking devices back and forth. It's interesting watching kindergartners carry iPads in their book bags back and forth to school, and some of that has been very interesting for me as the tech director for supporting families at home. And that was one of our biggest things that we had to do, was support families at home with Wi-Fi, with how do I connect, those types of things. And I've made probably 45 or so home visits to be able to help families get that last piece so that way they can continue the instruction at home. So then that's the question is, what does virtual learning really truly need to look like at home during those 3 days? So once again, teachers are still working in those teacher-based teams, even for the virtual day assignments. And the grand majority of this work is being done asynchronously. So teachers have time on Wednesdays. They're, hooking up with kids. They're, targeted intervention is really what we're calling it. If the kids don't need it and they're okay, that's good. Some teachers are doing office hours where kids can pop in and out. With that, here you can see one of our kids with one of our, I think a first grade teacher there, doing some small group. There's about 4 or 5 kids there with some small groups. So what can we do? If I'm going to give a lecture, do I really need to give that lecture when kids are face-to-face, or can I record myself? Can I use QuickTime? Can I use Screencastify? Can I use different, Weve video type things to be able to record those? And then actually, honestly, good practice is that kids can go back and watch those again and again. Parents can watch those because parents need support just as much as the kids do with this. So how can we record those things? And once again, that's what part of Wednesdays are, is to be able to record these. So with that shared creation model that we've got, teachers are working together. So I'm, first grade teacher, I don't have to create every video. My team has to create the videos, but not just me individually. So we're not redundantly doing those things and quote unquote wasting time with that. One of the big things that we made recommendation more is that recorded videos should not be any more than 8 minutes long for student engagement. And we encouraged use of different programs, Edpuzzle, Pear Deck, GimKit is a huge one that we added in this year. Padlet has also been very highly recommended by our teachers. The kids, I have a 3rd grade student, my daughter's in 3rd grade, and she's been loving being able to see her teachers, being able to see other teachers from the district, being able to interact with other kids. And then she knows exactly what she has. So there's a syllabus that comes out every Friday for the following week. She knows exactly what assignments she's supposed to do during those 3 days. Some teacher-based teams are saying, here's what we want you to do on your first virtual day, your second, your third. Some are just saying, hey, here's activities for the week, and you can move forward with those as you go through. So really having the difference between face-to-face and virtual days. And then talking about the teacher's role, this is one of my favorite teachers. Actually, it's a former student of mine who is now a middle school teacher who posted this on Twitter, and he said I could use this picture, but the teacher's role has had to change as well too. And obviously, he's doing Google Meet there or what have you, and you can only see from the waist up, so he decided to get a little comfy there. But once again, it comes down to, we wanted to value the good teachers that we have in the district, and we know that they make a very big impact on what the kids are learning or don't learn as well too. So what we did was we pushed the start of school back 3 weeks, and we had 3 weeks of planning time. We got rid of all of our professional development days throughout the course of the school year, knowing that we would have Wednesdays for a while. So all those random PD days or 2-hour delays or anything like that, we got rid of those, moved those dates up to the beginning of the school year. We ended up losing probably about 5 or 6 actual instructional days, but we felt that it was valuable. And we started the conversation with, like I've said before, what can be done asynchronously and what needs to be done in school. We created those district wide teacher-based teams. We talked about different ways for communication. We created different Google groups so teachers could email easily. A lot of our staff started using Wakelet as well too, to be able to store different things in those Wakelet collections. And the big thing is teachers, you're gonna work together. There is no more closing the door and doing my own thing. It's we have to work together to be able to get all of this done, or there is gonna be huge teacher burnout and teacher stress because there's just not enough time to redesign everything. So luckily, when we are making this change to go to, as we're calling light green, to 4 days a week, we're still going to have that Wednesdays to be able to do this work, because we're still going to continue the work with the teacher-based teams to move forward with this. And some teachers have struggled with this. Some teachers have struggled working collaboratively, but I think we're to the point now where everybody sees the value of it. And like I said, we had a meeting before we presented this to the board, and one of the biggest things was we have to have the Wednesdays because our teachers are doing amazing work, but they can only do this new amazing work if they have time to work together. And it's just incredible too, watching the shared delivery model and seeing teachers that are saying, hey, I'm really good at this, but I'm not so good at this, so I'm going to help with this. But then we have somebody else on our team that may be really good at a different point of it. So our students are getting the best out of every teacher as they move forward. And I know Leilani's talked a lot about that shared delivery model as well too, and we're doing more shared creation and a little bit more of the shared delivery model, but this is actually something we want to talk about. How can we continue this even further when we get back into school and starting to maybe shuffle some kids around when that's appropriate, to be able to have them work with different teachers for different standards and different levels and things like that. So this slide, I'm going to break every YouTube or every PowerPoint rule on it, but I wanted to include this, and I'm not going to go over this, but it's in the plan. We wanted to talk about what does our instructional model look like? And a lot of this comes from the work that Catlin Tucker helped us with this summer, and really talking about what are some of those things that we need to put in, like creating a welcome video. We weren't able to do teacher open houses or meet the teacher nights. So everybody created welcome videos. Flipgrid came in really handy with this, talking about a lot of teachers and everybody, even the custodians and the secretaries and everybody created videos and put them all on a big Flipgrid page so parents and students could see who everybody was, which was really cool. A lot of stuff through Seesaw is our elementary platform. Google Classroom is middle school up through high school. Creating that online syllabus, posting expectations, mapping out what we need to do, creating those instructional components, knowing that the online activities need to be self-directed and kids aren't going to be able to get access to a teacher super fast like they would in a regular school setting. And then identifying, how do we assess? How do we assess kids when we only have them 2 days a week? And do we really need to do the same assessments we've done in the past? Because that's one of the questions we had was, well, kids are going to cheat if we do online tests. Well, if kids are cheating, is that really the best way to identify or assess kids? How about we get to some more PBL type things or some more authentic experiences? And we've been able to move in that type of a direction that I don't think without this, I guess you could say, don't waste a good crisis type of a situation. But without this, we wouldn't have been able to move some of our staff in the way that we have because of this. The other thing that we talked about a lot was we wanted to create expectations. And expectations, here's the different groups that we created expectations for. And if you look on that plan, and I'll put the link back up again here at the end, but if you look at our plan, we've got expectations for every single one of these groups at every single one of those color status levels. So that way they know what they're doing at each one of those levels. Now, do we have to work through a lot more? Yes. Does that cause more questions? Yes. But does it give us a starting point and an idea of what the job is going to look like in a hybrid model, or in a, virtual model, or if we close a building down, those types of things. So we really pushed these out, talked a lot with parents about what are the expectations of parents now. I mean, just as simple from making sure your student's device gets charged at night, so that way it comes ready to go, to taking temperatures, to what do I do if my student has a fever, how do I get work if they have to be out. All of those types of things needed to be in the expectations. So the last part of this, I want to talk a little bit about what have we learned so far, and what are some of those things that, if you're moving into a hybrid model, or if you're already in a hybrid model, what are some of those things that you probably need to think about? And I'll be honest with you, I don't have all the answers to these. We're still figuring things out. We're still trying to do the best that we can for our kids and our families, but these are some of the things that we have learned so far. The first thing is, and I'm sure most of you know this now, is that all of these decisions are very polarizing, and you're not going to make everybody happy. It seems like everybody is at one end of the spectrum or the other. When we decided to go hybrid, it was either, hey, I'm all for that, let's do it, or it was, I don't want my kids anywhere close to school, or I don't want my kids anywhere close to other kids. And there really wasn't a lot of people in the middle. And it seemed like no matter what the decision we're trying to make, we're not going to make everybody happy. The other thing that we noticed was that kids that struggle in quote unquote regular school struggled even more in hybrid models. And we also identified that kids that don't have a good support system are going to struggle a lot when we went into the virtual days. So we need to identify who those kids are and what can we do as a district to help to be able to support those kids. We also have a large number of EL students and families, and we had a huge problem with them understanding what this change was. So that's where talking points came in really handy. We've had to hire quite a few interpreters to be able to do this, because one of the things that we had was we had an opt-in to our virtual learning academy, which was 100% online, and we had a lot of our EL families sign up for this, and they signed up because they were told they had to sign up. They didn't know exactly what they were signing up for. So thinking about how can you translate things, and I know translation's expensive. But what other supports can we do for our EL families as we go through? We talked about we need to support students and families when they're at home, from anything from, on my end, technology pieces to isolation issues, to setting up schedules, to even we started talking with families about how do we give teaching and learning support, or how can we give you some parents just some support of, here's some teaching strategies, because now you've turned into a student teacher basically, and trying new things with your own kids. We found that technology issues were so much greater in a hybrid model, and that was basically because we're now asking these devices to be connected and used a lot at home. We also found out that families never have enough Wi-Fi. Every family that I did a home visit with pretty much said, yeah, we've got Wi-Fi, but they didn't have enough Wi-Fi. Some families had 5 or 10 megs, and they had a PlayStation, 3 smart TVs, 2 iPads, a Ring doorbell, all of these things that were connected, and they just didn't have enough Wi-Fi. So luckily we had a hotspot program that we were able to use that really helped to support a lot of this work. Keep it simple. I said that before. Simplicity is key with this. And you've got to be able to allow some flexibility with your students, parents, and staff. Flexibility is one of the biggest things that's helped us be successful with this as we've gone through. And then we found out we can communicate too much. There's that unwritten rule, you can never communicate too much. Yeah, you can. We found out we can communicate too much, and the information was getting lost. So we tried to start to condense and to create digests of those communication, because we would learn something and we would send it out. We would learn something else, we would send it out. And it was coming in 10, 15 emails per week. Parents don't have time to read all those. So we started saying, okay, we know this, but we don't need to send it out right now. Let's wait and send out bigger emails with more things in there. Parents need a way to get their questions answered. How does that work? Does that go through the teacher first? Does that go through the building principal first? What about tech questions? What about communication questions? Those types of things. So we set up some different emails. We set up an ask at PLSD for general questions. We set up an ask tech email. And that's been one of my jobs this year, is answering those tech questions back and forth to families. And that, yes, it's overwhelming, and yes, it's a lot. But once you get past the initial changes, it's leveled off now. I bet you I get maybe 5 emails a week now for support at home, once we got past the hundreds of them coming in at the very beginning. Your staff needs to feel supported. That's one of the biggest things. Staff needs to know that they've got support. Who's going to support them? How are jobs going to change? How are roles from your support staff or from your administrators going to change? Also, talking about ordering PPE, I'm sure most of you, if you're building leaders, you've been ordering PPE, order more, all that kind of stuff. Attendance has been one of the hardest things that we have done in this time. So how do you figure out and keep attendance accurate and consistent as you go through? Teachers will definitely do a great job, but only if they're given time. Once again, this is different, this is new. They need time to be able to do that. The shared creation and delivery of materials has worked out great. I talked about that a little bit earlier. That is one of the biggest bonuses that we've created from this, and one of the things that we are definitely going to be keeping in the past. And then along with that, collaboration has been stronger than ever. We're lucky here. We have a great data department that's part of our technology department, and they have done a great job with all the SIS changes, the student information changes that we've had to do, and being able to get those all up and running. The principals have done a great job with visual cues in the hallways, because no matter how many times you say things or no matter how many times you put signs up, kids still aren't going to remember to walk on the right side of the hallway, or remember this is a one-way hallway, or remember to do this or remember to do that. And then from our nursing staff, contact tracing takes time and takes people. And that's one of the things that we're concerned about when we go back to 4 days a week, is that now we're doubling our population and contact tracing is going to take even longer. So really thinking about that contact and where can we actually get some help with that to be able to figure out the whole lovely contact tracing piece. So with that, Leilani, I don't know if we have any questions or anything, but there is my contact information there in the middle of the screen. And then at the bottom is the link to our Flexible Learning 2.0 plan.
Yeah, that was amazing. And I'm really proud of you and your whole team. This is really amazing. So everybody that's on the line right now, feel free to type in your questions or raise your hand. You have like a little dead digital hand there on your dashboard that, well, it just looks like a little hand. You just click on that, and then we know you have your hand raised, and then we can call on you. It'll be awesome. So I do have a question of my own, and then I'm gonna share a video and then get started here with our next line of duty with our different sharers out today. But my main question, and you know me, Brian, I'm gonna ask the hardball questions because that's the way I roll.
Let's go.
My main question is just with regards to, you know, how did you guys try to motivate the students? You know, like they suddenly have all their own agency when they're not around. You know, they're online and they're supposed, and if they don't have that support system, like you mentioned, they got to try to, you know, get themselves out of bed and get to the, you know, meeting or whatever is going to be had online, or get to their homework, you know, do all the things they're supposed to do. And, you know, that's a heavy lift when you're used to doing everything, where you just arrive and then somebody does something to you in terms of learning. Now you got to do it to yourself. Talk to me a little bit about that part.
So one of the biggest words that we used a lot for that is engagement. If your assignments and your material that you're presenting to kids are boring, they're not going to want to come up and do, what they want. So a couple years ago, we had Dave Burgess, who's the Teach Like a Pirate guy, come in and speak with our staff. And he made a statement of, if the kids didn't have to come to your classroom, would they come back? And this is really that. Kids don't have to log in. I mean, there's nobody there forcing their hand per se. I mean, obviously we'll contact them and we want them to log in to virtual classes, but there's not that force. So if you're creating good material, and once again, that's why we invested in some of those different digital programs to really be able to motivate kids and engage kids across the district, that's really helped. And our teachers that are teaching more virtual than face-to-face have done some amazing work with engagement and trying to get those students involved in pieces. And then, really moving a lot of things from the standard traditional type of assignments where kids could look things up into more of the PBL, more of the digital gamification type programs where kids can earn points or kids can earn badges. We have some teachers that are, we have one teacher that recently got a Peloton exercise bike. And she's like, after I've been to, so many sessions or I've done 10 sessions in a row, I get a badge. So they're offering badges to their students if they make it to so many Google Meets in a row and things like that. So once again, just being engaging and giving kids things that will bring them back has been really advantageous.
Great, good comment. Yeah, it's you're hurting student learning just at a distance, and it feels a little different. So this is awesome. This was a really great talk. I don't see any questions coming in, so I'm going to move on to sharing a video and calling on someone. Thank you so much, Brian. I think your work is amazing. I will tell you now, Pickerington's a finalist for a new Edu Jedi level, and we've just recently selected the almost 100 finalists. We had many digital transition survey responses this year, and the bulk of them from mid-tier and smaller districts, which really shows a big difference in the market. Over 20,000 schools and districts interacted with the survey. When we got down to the narrow list, you're on it. So get ready.
Thanks for the good news.
Yeah, get ready. So awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go show a video now. Brian, hang on if you can, or I know you have a busy life. If you need to exit stage left, I understand. But so nice having you. Thank you.
Brightspace is a learning management system that makes it easier for you to give each student a more personalized learning experience. And now you can do it with fewer headaches and in less time. It's one platform with a single sign-on to all the tools you need that works on any device and can be used to create a different experience for each grade level. The youngest students can use a portfolio specifically built for non-readers to share what they're learning. As they get older and busier, the activity feed shows them the latest updates to help them keep track of everything that's going on. And no matter what grade your students are in, it's simpler than ever to create lessons and check that content is aligned to standards. You can use materials from publishers, open educational resources, or bring them in directly from Google Drive. The social interface brings it all together in a way that's easy for anyone to use and keeps everyone connected: teachers, students, and their parents. With Brightspace, you'll be able to reach every learner in a way that supports their learning style.